Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. It is Imperfectly Marielle here, coming back to you with another one. So this week we're gonna dive right in. My quote of the day that I saw somewhere that resonated with me was, I cannot wait until all the pieces of my life finally come together so that I can finally understand why I went through everything that I did. So while I am a very optimistic person and I really believe everything happens for a reason, I was talking to a cousin of mine and he said, you know, this concept of everything happening for a reason. No, everything happened because of a reason. And I kind of was like, yikes. While that makes so much sense, I just choose to look at it the other way. So I'm gonna choose to believe everything happened for a reason, that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that all this will make sense one day. And so while his perspective was very but I just choose to have faith and believe that everything happened for a reason. So I can't wait for all of it to make sense, all the puzzle pieces to come together and paint this beautiful picture. And so I saw that and it resonated, so I wanted to share. Diving right into this week's video, we are going to talk about detention. So I told you guys about how I came in. I told you guys about living undocumented. I told you guys about doomsday, which was when I got picked up. Now you need to know, I know you all are like, what happens next? What happens next? You guys had a ton of questions, which I answered in my last video, some of them anyway. Now we get to talk about the process and what happened after that. Well, I think we stopped off at Officer Jones giving me this blanket and me going to bed the day after, basically 24 hours after I was picked up. So from that day forward, everything as I knew it was different, was new. I was in a new world, a whole new world, cue Aladdin. I was in an environment that I had never been in before. We are in a dorm setting. We are in bunk beds, two beds, metal beds, with a mattress about this thin, with a wool blanket, and about 12 rolls on each side of this particular row, and then another row, and then another row. And so I think they say it's army style. I think that's how the army are housed. This was all new to me. And so I remember that morning, I had gotten some sleep because I was so tired. From the officer giving me that blanket, I laid down, I did get some sleep, and I was awakened shortly after because there was chow, there was breakfast. So I was awakened to an officer screaming, get up, come eat. And when I got there, it's all foreign to me. I thought I was in a nightmare, I thought I was in a bad dream, but then I was reminded quickly that no, this is your life. And I just remember looking around. There was women of all races, all age groups, all sizes, just different women. Naturally, I gravitated to a group of black girls that I saw. I walked beeline straight to a group of black girls. There was this tall black girl who will remain nameless because our love affair ended up turning into something else. But I beeline straight to her and she welcomed me with open arms. She kind of was giving me the ropes and telling me like, okay, so now you have to go eat and you have to do this and you have to do that. And all I wanted to do was call home. I wanted to call my family. And so she allowed me to make a phone call on her account, because once you're in jail or detention, you have to have your own account where people put money and you make your calls. So she allowed me my first phone call. So I was able to call home and just basically, I just was trying to like take it all in the first day. And I remember asking the women around, every person that encountered me that said good morning, how long have you been here? Like, how long before this is all over? And I had some women that said 2 months, I had some women that said 2 weeks, and I had some women that said 2 years. So now fear is setting in. I'm terrified. 2 years, 2 months, hell, 2 weeks. I was really like, I thought this was gonna be an in and out process. And the girls was like, girl, you are in for a ride. So I'm panicking. I am in a state of just complete shock and just disbelief. And so I started hearing some of the girls' stories, and they were telling me what it was like to now be facing detention and removal in ICE. Some of the stories I heard were just heartbreaking. Women left their children behind, hadn't spoke to their kids in months, and hadn't seen their family. Husbands were off doing what they do. I mean, it was just a horrible, horrible thing. What really captured my attention was that we were all in there for a variety of different arrests, a variety of like we all had a different story. Not a single person in there had the same story with someone else. Everyone came differently. Everyone was from a different country. Everyone was fighting a different fight. So while we were all housed together, what really bothered me was that a lot of us were in there for different crimes. There was a girl in there for attempted murder. She had stabbed her boyfriend and he ended up dying, or almost dying, or was in a coma. She was in there like for that. And then there was girls in there that was in there for domestic situations, and there was me that was in there for a DUI. So there was all types of different things, but they housed us all together. So just to give you an idea, you had people in there with mental health issues, you had people who were just like business owners, and then like the lowest of, you know, the lowest of class, if I may, you know, be politically incorrect. Just different people, but they were all housed together because we were facing one common thing, and that was removal. And so the group of girls that I saw, they were actually Jamaican. I have a love affair with Jamaican people. I love my Jamaican people. My second one is Jamaican. And so I gravitated towards them, and we clicked instantly. I was the only Haitian girl in there. Believe it or not, I was the only Haitian girl in there. There were a lot of Mexicans, there were a lot of Venezuelans, all different Hispanic backgrounds, but I was the only Haitian girl in there. And so my first court date was to be set after I met up with lawyers. So they told me I needed to reach out to a group of lawyers in Brooklyn, and I did so. And one of them came to see me at my first arraignment, which was about 2 weeks after I got in there. And these women, these two ladies, decided that they told me that they would pick up my case, and they would shortly after come in to see me. Once they came in to see me, they would brief me on everything they needed to know, and then we would build a case and see if I had a defense or a relief, and then we would go from there. And so for the first couple months, it was about gathering information, me telling them everything that I knew from the time I came in all the way up to now, just telling them everything for them to build a case, because they knew all the different reliefs. They were attorneys, they knew all the different stuff. And so at our first meeting, I remember them telling me, you have a strong case. You are potentially gonna walk out of here an American citizen. Let's fight for that. So for the majority of the time that I was in there, that was my focus, to prove my citizenship because of how long I had been in the country, and you know, all the things that was involved in my case. I needed to prove it though. You weren't just gonna say you were, you needed to prove it. And so that took a lot of paperwork, requesting paperwork from Florida where I was living, from, you know, my grandmother, who unfortunately is older now and can no longer tell me exactly this is what I did. She has no idea what's going on. Unfortunately, her mind is not, you know, there. And so now I'm having to prove that I belong. And that was a fight that, the magnitude of that fight became bigger than anything that I just ever imagined. Month after month, because every court date would be a month after. So they would ask you for one thing this month, you would bring it, and they would need to verify it. And so that took 30 days. And so you would have to go back and wait 30 days. And between time, in the meantime, graduation of my son was passing by, birthdays was passing by, Christmas was passing by, all the holidays, my grandmother, my aunt's birthday, I missed your own birthday. You were gonna, like, your life no longer was as you knew it. You were in there facing removal, which was bigger than anything else. And so month after month, they would ask me for stuff. I would provide the things based on what I had to send to Florida to go get, and whatever paperwork my lawyer could get her hand on. And every time we got in that courtroom in front of that judge, they shut them down. Everything we presented was not good enough. Everything we presented was fraud based on the fact that it wasn't registered in Haiti. Everything we presented was outdated, we just could not win. We could not win. I was left to face what is called, I needed to make a decision to find what other reliefs that I would potentially qualify for. And the other only relief that I qualified for was something called a T visa. And that T visa was because I was gonna have to say that I was trafficked into the US, which would then put my family at risk of prosecution. And so that was not an option. That was absolutely not an option. So month turned into month and turned into month. 1 month turned into 10 months, and I was left no other option other than sign out and go back home. And so that was detention in a nutshell. It was by far the most The biggest thing I ever dealt with, the worst thing I ever dealt with, I watched girls attempt to commit suicide. I watched the strongest of women break down. I watched people fight. I was involved in a fight. You're mentally drained. Like every morning you'd get up and be faced all over again with the fact that your freedom is taken away from you for an indefinite amount of time. You didn't know when you were going home, if ever. Your family's probably back home falling apart. Your husband may be out cheating or not being supportive. Like, it was just the craziest thing I had ever dealt with. I witnessed so much while being detained. And so I just remember moments where I felt like I wasn't myself. I cried so much that it was a morning that I woke up and I couldn't open my eyes, and my eyes were swollen shut. And I just remember being in such a dark state, just a deep, dark state of depression. I had never suffered from anxiety. I never suffered from depression, but I remember always shaking my leg. Like, I was always like antsy. I was always just down. It was just like, just a horror. I can't even find the words to explain what detention was like. I remember hearing different stories of when people went to court, and one of the stories that really broke my heart was this Mexican lady. She went in front of a judge, and the judge, she had about 9 kids, and she was pregnant at the time, funny enough. This particular woman, I guess, had been deported before, and so her situation was different. So she was pregnant. They did allow her to go, they were trying to get her out before she was too far along. So there were cases where being pregnant didn't help you. And so I just remember her standing in front of the judge, and the judge telling her, well, she went back and told me, I wasn't there. She went back and she came back and told us, and she said that the judge said, you know, your anchor babies no longer work to keep you guys in this country. You all come here and you have all these children, and you expect, you know, these children to keep you here, but your anchor babies no longer worked. And I just remember saying, anchor baby, because an anchor, if you know what an anchor is when you drop an anchor, it allows the ship to stand still and not drift. And so they were referring to our American-born children as anchor babies. We came and literally planted these children in the country so that we would have a reason to stay still. And I just thought that was so inhumane. That was just so nasty. And then there were women fighting amongst themselves because we were fighting the base. No, none of us were ourselves. None of us, I believe, if I was to run into some of these girls outside, they would be a completely different person. But this very girl that gave me my first phone call and welcomed me with open arm, her and I ended up being like, I don't know, who are the 2 biggest enemies? Like, I had never used the term, I hate someone, until this woman. Till this day, at the sound of her name, like, I twitch. She made my life a living hell in there. And it was all because she was hurting. She had gone through what she was going through. She had been deported 5 times and she was facing it again. So she was just miserable. And so she made sure everyone around her was miserable. She was hateful. She was nasty. But in her heart of heart, I know she was a good person, because she had shown an officer gave her an orange, and she came and shared it with like 3 of us. She was a good person deep inside, but fighting removal turned her into something nasty. Like, I used to look at that girl and just like she just was so awful as a person. So that's what that does to you. It turns you into something completely different. There was one upside. There were pastors and like church leaders that would come in and have service with us. I promise you, that kept my mind from going crazy. I looked forward to Sundays when, you know, pastors would come in, Wednesday nights, Friday nights, whenever they would come in with a word. It gave you hope. It gave you encouragement, because while in there and getting shut down from prosecutors and judges and being told no and denials and all that stuff, if you didn't have a positive word, because you weren't going to get it from inside, so it had to come from us. Besides my family, who were just like my backbone. Every time I called home, I would sit. They have a little bench where I'll just put my head down and close my eyes, and I'd be on the phone, and I escaped it all, and I just felt like I was in another place. Talking to my aunt, the sound of her voice and the positivity that she exuded through that phone. Talking to my kids, my boyfriend at the time, my his mother, who was very supportive, my cousins. these people friends that would just like encourage me. If you don't have a strong support system while you're going through this, I don't even know how people do it without. And I knew people who I had never seen on that phone. That particular girl, I had never seen that girl on that phone for longer than 5 minutes. Her son would call, she would call her son, and that was about all. She didn't have a friend, nothing. And so I kind of understood, and I gave her grace as to why she was so nasty. But detention was hell. Detention was hell. I watched an Asian lady attempt to jump down because some of the officers were nasty. They treated us like we were just scum. Like they just didn't have any sympathy for us. They did not care. They treated us bad. I had an officer just go off on me because I asked her for some toilet paper, and I think she was on the phone texting her boyfriend and whatever. She was having a bad day, and I came to her and I was like, hey, I need some goodies. And I didn't want to say, I think it was like sanitary products. I needed something because they keep it all locked up. And she just went off on me. She lost it on me. And I just remember just being so in a state of like, what is my life? Like, what is my life? So detention was hell. Detention was hell. And like I said, I fought for 10 months, spent Christmas, Thanksgiving, all of the holidays from March all the way back to end of February when I decided to leave, or when I had to leave. And so that was detention. I can get deeper into things, but for now, we're gonna stop here just to give you an overview. Again, I don't wanna get too deep into some of these conversations because it brings some memories that I'm trying to leave behind. It brings some thoughts, and like I said, it's just, I don't wanna relive those moments. And so we'll stop here and we will do a Q&A if you want to about that, or if I think of anything else, we'll do a story time. As for now, we're gonna stop here, and so I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. See you later.